Welcome to your shape project. We are going to work this week on building your shape library, and in this video we'll look at some examples of artists' work that use shape in their work, and then I'll show you a demo of how to do this warm-up sketch project. Okay, so we're really taking time to look at different art and design, artists and designers, and I want you to develop your senses around artwork. You don't have to like everything I show you. I intentionally show you a diverse array of artists and work to help you find something that you connect with. So I'm not expecting everybody to connect with everything. What I am expecting is that you learn to appreciate all these artists for their creativity, their innovativeness, their intentionality behind the work. So this can help you develop your personal taste, and your personal taste is going to help you with your own art making, what you want to make, what you want to see out in the world. And maybe there's a blank space there of stuff you don't want to see that you want to see exist in the world. A lot of artists and writers do that, right? Filmmakers, they create what they haven't seen, what they thought was missing. But you don't know what's missing until you know what's out there, right? So I really want you to learn how to talk about your preferences, what you like and don't like, and then that will help you articulate your own concepts and speak about your own work. So this is all just about looking and discussing and growing your personal taste. Nothing is right or wrong. So there's a lot of different art styles, and humans need to categorize stuff. Of course, not everything fits neatly into these boxes, but it does help us talk about artwork so we can have some kind of vocabulary that is consistent when we're talking about artwork. So representational art is stuff that represents images, objects, people, places, landscapes from our observable reality. And I use the term observable reality a lot because something like what the surrealists make surrealism is like Salvador Dali and lots of other great artists, and they worked from their dreams. So someone's dream is part of their subconscious, and that's their own kind of reality, but it's not from our collective observable reality where we can all see there's an apple on a table. We can all recognize that as an apple. Something that's from not our collective observable reality could be something from your imagination or subconscious that becomes something else. So then an abstraction is something from our observable reality, but it's exaggerated or distorted in some kind of way. There's a lot of intentional changes made by the artist to abstract it. And a type of abstraction, I would say it's a type of abstraction, I don't know if everyone categorizes it like this, is if something's stylized. So it's a little more specific, like flattening it or simplifying it. It can be like a really graphic style. And we see it a lot in design when things are abstracted and stylized. And then different from all of these is non-representational. So it's something that's not recognizable from our observable reality at all. It's not distorted, it's not abstracted, it doesn't exist in our observable reality. So that's like the Jackson Pollock splatter paintings. Those are just non-representational. It's not trying to represent anything that exists that we all see. So when we're looking at this art, I want you to notice the shapes. We're working on shape. And notice what they're inspired by, because this kind of non-representational shape making that we're doing is harder than you think. Once you go beyond squares, rectangles, triangles, if you're trying to make different kinds of shapes, it's great to have something that you're inspired by. And I also want you to notice open and closed shapes, because you're going to have to create them yourself. So here we go with some abstractions. So this is a Chilkat blanket from the Tlingit tribe. They're in the Pacific Northwest and Alaska. This is from the 19th or 20th century. And these are very graphic, stylized, flattened, closed shapes. So they're based on our observable reality, right? These are based on animals. They're stylized versions of animals. We see eyes and nose and mouth. We see different things here, maybe some wings, but they're very stylized. They don't look like they look in reality. They're abstracted from reality, but they are representing something that exists in all of our observable reality. So this is a really graphic, bold style. The black outlines are really helping pop out those blues and yellows. And this is a really great example. All this kind of traditional Pacific Northwest Native American artwork is really graphic and bold, and they have some awesome shapes that you can be inspired by. There's a lot in there. This is Milton Avery, American artist from, working, this is from the 50s. And so this is also very flat. There is no depth in this, except maybe a little bit in the shadow in the seat that the fisherman is on. But all the shapes are created from reality, but abstracted to be totally flat. So I like to think if you took off like the head of the birds, or even the head of the fisherman and the hands, you could create some interesting, completely non-representational shapes here. So what I'm showing you is how we're kind of breaking stuff down from our observable reality to get into these different shapes. This is Henri Matisse. He was a French artist, and this could be called non-representational probably, but what I want to show you, if we didn't have the title of the artwork, right? It's called Lagoon. So he's being inspired by water, right? A lagoon, water shapes, and you could see maybe, I don't know if that's coral or different ways of water flows, different shapes you see on the water, but really abstracting it, flattening it, and making the most simple shapes possible and pulling out, just a few colors. Okay, now this was, closed shapes, like that black shape and the white shape and the purple are completely closed shapes. And now we're seeing some open shapes from Picasso. He was a Spanish artist. And again, it's the kind of thing that the title of the artwork is giving us a lot of clues here. So this is a bottle and a wine glass on a table. So what Picasso is doing is completely flattening everything out and breaking them down to the most simple shapes, and then kind of breaking it up with all these lines, whether those are the legs of the table. I do see a wine glass, and it's kind of hard sometimes to see. And this is also, a little bit of mixed media because there's newspaper in there and cut paper. And then he's drawing with graphite, which is pencil on paper. So think about how some of these shapes are open, but they're still creating a shape. So they're not closed, as in they're not like a finished shape that would be colored in solid. There's some elements of it just left open. So be thinking about those open shapes too. Here's another example from Picasso. Now this is getting really abstracted. It's called Head. I know it's hard to see, and it's okay if you don't see it. And this is cut paper too, which we'll be doing some cut paper collage. So you can start to put your compositions together. So it's kind of cool to see how other artists did this over time. So he's really breaking stuff down into pretty much unrecognizable, non-representational forms and shapes. And I just like that there's these simple shapes like the triangle, but then he's cut a rectangle into it. And I think that shows the different ways you can break down shapes, make simple shapes a little more interesting. Okay, now we're moving into totally non-representational. So this is Piet Mondrian. He was a Dutch artist who I believe also lived in France. And you've probably seen these images before. They're pretty well known. They're completely non-representational. It's not representing anything, any objects or people or places that exist in reality. It's lines and color. So these are all, really simple geometric shapes, closed shapes. This is kente cloth from Ghana in Africa, and this is worn by chiefs, and it's beautiful, beautiful handmade cloth. And you can see the full thing on the top and then a close up on the bottom, so you can really see the shapes that are in there. So we have, zigzag shapes, we have stripes, we have those like box cutout shapes that almost look like stairs all the way on the right in the red and the yellow. That's creating a cool shape. Adding those steps to the edge of a triangle really gives it so much more interest. So I want you to start thinking about things like this, how you can combine different shapes together, how you can make a simple shape more interesting. This is Ruth Waddy, an African-American artist, and this is, not representing anything we see in reality, but it's really bold. There's all that texture in there, which I think is so cool. There's a really simple color palette, which I put next to the kente cloth because I think it looks inspired by the kente cloth, or these kind of colors go well together, those yellow, browns, reds. So just look at all of the shapes in here and how they're combined together, how the line work is working with these shapes. There's a lot going on here that I think is really interesting. And the negative space in this piece is also creating a lot of really interesting shape. This is Alma Thomas, another African-American artist. This is called The Eclipse from the 70s. And this is completely non-representational, even though for her it's representing an eclipse. And to me, it looks like a mosaic. I just love the colors. It's really beautiful, the rainbow colors. And I love the simple shapes with the white outline. I think that really brings out these more organic, they're all kind of rectangles, right? Like curved rectangles, but we see the edges are really sort of organic, like a stone or a mosaic. The more I look at this painting, for some reason, the more interested I get into it. It seems so simple at first glance, but it really draws you in with the circle and the repeated shapes. And I think it shows that something simple can still be so interesting. Okay, this is Julia Jumbo. She was a Native American Navajo weaver. This is a tradition that, again, like the kente cloth, is this beautiful weaving, hand-woven tradition, which these kind of things, these textiles always impress me because it's something I can't knit or barely even sew or anything. So this is always so amazing to me that someone can make a work of art out of yarn or wool. They hand spin the wool from sheep that the artist raised herself. So she's not only weaving it, she's raising the sheep and making the threads of wool yarn by herself, which is just even more impressive to me. So look at all the shapes here. I mean, similar to that kente cloth, we have the triangle with those blocks cut out, almost like steps. That's a really interesting shape. We have a lot of stuff in the middle going on with really cool shapes that are just really rectangles all put together. And this has a lot of negative and positive space in it. So it can kind of change depending how you're looking at it. So just thinking about how you can combine really simple shapes again and make something so interesting. Okay, so for your warm-up that I'll demonstrate at the end of this video, you're just gonna practice sketching quick, simple shapes on paper. You're gonna fill one sheet of paper with shapes. And they should be open and closed shapes. And I want you to think about the inspiration for your shapes. So Remember the symbols and signs we did in the intro discussion, and then look at the examples in these slides, which you can download on Canvas or just look at on Canvas more closely. You don't have to watch the whole video again. You can even try copying some of the shapes from the slides, so you can get used to making your own shapes. And then for the project, you're going to create a shape library. So you're making at least 20 different shapes in pencil, on paper. You can use pen if you want. You're going to use as many sheets of paper as you need because next week you're going to be cutting out the closed shapes to make a composition that you'll use. So we're going to be using this library in several more weeks throughout the course. So really take your time to make shapes that are interesting to you, that are inspiring to you. They should all be non-representational and they should be open and closed, a mix of open and closed. So just take your time with this. There'll be a demonstration. I'll show you a demonstration of how to do it in another video. So just look on Canvas for that. But you can also use the sketches to start working out what kind of shapes you want to make for your shape library. So just have fun with it, and I'll show you what I'm expecting and how to do it all. So this is the demonstration for your warm-up sketch, and I really just want you to fill a page practicing making shapes. These warm-ups, you're not posting to any discussion, you're just submitting them to Canvas, and I am only going to check them, and it's really to make sure you watched the video and went through the slides and are starting to have an understanding of the project and get you ready for the project. So you can do it with pencil or pen and whatever paper you have. You can use computer paper, printer paper, sketch paper. And I just want you to fill the whole page with shapes. And you can start with shapes you've drawn before, circles, squares, triangles, and then start thinking about the shapes from the demonstration, from the slides. I love those Matisse shapes like this. There's so many options with that. You can also, I think of these as they remind me of Beetlejuice, the original one, like the mom sculptures. I don't know, I always loved those kind of shapes because I love that movie. Think of things that are symbols or signs like from the discussion. You can also copy some shapes from the presentation if you want. Like there was that shape from the Picasso that was a triangle, but then it had a cutout in it. That's kind of a cool shape. Now it almost looks like the letter A to me when I'm looking at it like this. So try different types of shapes. You can think of like solid shapes or flowy shapes or energetic shapes. You can also think of open shapes. Remember the Picasso, this would be an open shape that's not closed. What kind of lines you want to make, how they're going to look in a composition is not really what we're thinking about yet. You're just really making different kinds of shapes, maybe that you've never tried something like this before, or maybe you make shapes and lines all the time. I want you to just practice making different kinds of shapes. There's spirals, that's an open shape. That's an open shape. Think of anything that you want to, just fill this whole page with shapes. You can build upon other shapes that you have. You can outline stuff. You can, like I said, copy and just fill this entire page to practice and to show me that you're applying the things that you learned from the slides to this sketch and warm up. And this can be a way for you to find some shapes to work on for the larger project. And just let me know if you have any questions and enjoy it.